Hey guys, welcome back to Tech with Deval. Hope all of you are safe and doing well. आज की वीडियो स्टार्ट करने से पहले मैं आपसे एक क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ एंड टेल मी ऑनेस्टली, क्या आपने कभी ऐसा सोचा है कि काश एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म होता जो आपको कोडिंग सिखाता अपने पेस पे, आपकी अपनी पर्सनल लैंग्वेज में, बी इट इंग्लिश, हिंदी और एनी रीजनल लैंग्वेज, एंड योर चॉइस ऑफ कोडिंग. Now when I say coding, I'm not talking about just programming languages like C++, Java or Python. Coding means data structure algorithms, your design principles, HLD, LLD and almost everything. I'm pretty sure आपने सोचा जरूर होगा, but you have not come across multiple resources, right? There will be very few or limited resources, and you might not have referred to it. So let's introduce to an initiative called Launchpad. Launchpad is a wonderful initiative launched by Newton School. Launchpad is specifically designed for people who want to learn coding from scratch and learn the basics of different programming languages for absolutely free of cost. Now, coming to a brief about Newton School. Newton School is one of the best tech platforms that prepares you for your career in tech. In addition to that, it first trains you for first 6 months and helps you become amazing full stack developers. Not just that, it also has a great network of 300 companies which hire from Newton School. So once the training is complete, Newton School ensures that the students are placed in some of the best companies in the country. And the best part, Newton School follows a pay after placement program, under which you don't have to pay anything to Newton School until unless you are placed with a minimum CTC of 5 lakh rupees. So what are you waiting for, guys? It's an opportunity too good to be true. The link is in the description. Apply now. Let's start the today's video. So welcome back to the Java Professional Developer series, Freshman to Professional Developer. इस सीरीज में हम बात करेंगे स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम अ फ्रेशमैन, द बेसिक वेरी ट्यूटोरियल्स लाइक JVM क्या होता है, JRE एंड JDK. And then we'll talk about the medium level concepts like multi-threading, synchronization, stream APIs and all. And then we'll go to the professional development series where we'll talk about microservices architecture, how they're performing, Springs, Hibernate and all. आज की वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे data types के बारे में. So we're going to cover a lot of topics regarding the data types, like what are the different type of data types, what are their use cases, where they are used, what kind of values do they store, what are their syntaxes, what much size they occupy, and how are they classified, and what is the basis of their qualification and sizes. Okay, so start करते हैं आज की वीडियो. सबसे पहले बात करते हैं डेटा टाइप्स के बारे में. डेटा टाइप्स को हम ब्रॉडली दो तरीके में क्लासिफाई कर सकते हैं, प्रिमिटिव एंड नॉन प्रिमिटिव. Now what are primitive and non-primitive? Primitive data types are those which are predefined in Java, and non-primitive data types are those which is user defined. So some of the examples of non-primitive data types are strings, arrays, etc. Now note here, string is an exception. String is not user defined. String is already available predefined in Java, but we count it as non-primitive data type because string refers to an object. That is why non-primitive data types are also called referred data types. अब referred data types क्या होता है, object क्या होता है, मे बी आपको इनिशियल फेज में समझ नहीं आएगा, but धीरे धीरे इस वीडियोस में हम जैसे जैसे आगे बढ़ेंगे I will explain each and everything. So you can just think that string is a very special kind of non-primitive data type which is predefined in Java, but it is still counted as non-primitive data type. Not just that, to give an example, string is also called the ninth spatial data type. Okay, बात करते हैं primitive data type की. We have 8 primitive data types in Java. Starting with that, if I have to classify, it will be Boolean versus integral. Boolean, integral, and character. So in case of a Boolean, there's only one data type. In characters, there's only char, which is again one data type. In case of integral, we have 6 data types, starting from 4 in integer and 2 in floating points. So in integer, we have byte, short, integer, and long. In floating point, we have float and double. Let's start one by one. What are these? What are their ranges? How much size they occupy? And what is the syntax to use it? Starting with the first Boolean data type. So Boolean data type is like a flag which says you true or false. So it can contain only 2 possible values, either true or false. Okay. As you can see, it's only using a flag and only 1 bit of data, right? So its size occupied will be 1 bit. Second, byte data type. So byte data type is an example of primitive data type under integers, right? So its value ranges from -128 to 127. As you can see, it's an 8-bit signed integer. 8-bit signed integer. So it means its value will range from 2 raised to the power -2 raised to the power 7 to 2 raised to the power 7 minus 1 because it's a signed integer, right? And its default value is 0. Size occupied by a byte is 2 bytes. Let's come to the short data type. Short data type is 16-bit signed to complement integer. What does 16-bit means? 16-bit signed value means its value will range from 2 raised to the power 15 minus 2 raised to the power 15 to 2 raised to the power 15 minus 1. Again, its default value is 0. Let's go to integer data type, which is the most commonly used data type. So in integer data type, it's a 32-bit signed 2's complement, right? What does 32-bit means? 32-bit signed integer means it means that the value of range will lie between minus 2 raised to the power 31 to 2 raised to the power 31 minus 1, right? This one value is for 0. So when you combine the value, it becomes 2 raised to the power 32 bits, okay? And the default value is 0 again. Just one point to mention here. So in case we can define unsigned integer and signed integer. So in case of a signed integer, out of those 32 bits, the first bit is used either it's a positive number or a negative number. That is why just range hoti hai, it becomes half of it. So you can see the range. The range is varying from minus 2 raised to the power 31 to 2 raised to the power 31 minus 1. In the case of a unsigned integer, that first bit is not required because value is always positive, correct? So that is why the range becomes double of it. Range becomes double of it. So in the case of unsigned integer, the value will be ranging from 0 to 2 raised to the power 32 minus 1. Double the range of signed integer. Let's continue with the long data type. So long data type is a 64-bit 2's complement, right? What a 64-bit in signed means? Minus 2 raised to the power 63 to 2 raised to the power 63 minus 1. It's a very, very, very large number, right? And again, the default value is 0, okay? This is used when a range of values you need more provided by the integer. For very, very large values, we use the long data type. These were the four integer data types as well as the character and Boolean data type. Now let's talk about the double data types. Now let's talk about the floating data type. So in floating data types, now let's talk about the floating data type. So in floating data types, we have two values. One is float data type, another is double data type. Okay. So in case of a float data type, it's a single precision 32-bit, right? So 32-bit. So you can see the value we define as f. The suffix that we use to define a float value is f. And then we have the double data type. So in case of a double data type, it's a double precision having 64-bit floating point, right? And for defaulting the value, its default value is 0.0d. And just to denote the subscription and the suffix that we used, the only difference, the advantage we get using a double data type is more precision as compared to the float data type. You can see from its value, right? It's 64-bit. And it is used for decimal value just like float. So the suffix that we use is a D here, just to denote it's a double data type. Last but not the least is a character data type. The character data type is just a single 16-bit Unicode integer. I'm repeating and stressing on this word Unicode integer. Its value range from, so character data type is a single 16-bit Unicode character. I'm again focusing on 16-bit Unicode character. So its value lies from U000 to U65535, which is again, so as you can see, right, this is 2 raised to the power 16 minus 1. The character data type is used to store the characters, as you can see. Okay, let's talk some of the about non-primitive data types. So non-primitive types, as I mentioned, they are called reference type because they refer to the objects. The main difference, let's understand the main difference between primitive and non-primitive data types. So the primitive data types, they are predefined, already defined in Java, right? But in the non-primitive data types, they are created by the programmer and is not defined by Java. Again, string is an exception here. Non-primitive data types are used to call methods to perform certain operations, while primitive data types cannot, right? And primitive type has always a value, while non-primitive types can be a null. If you use a primitive data types and do not assign a value, the compiler will give you an error. A primitive data type starts with a lowercase, while non-primitive type starts with an uppercase. We'll see across when we'll go to the coding part. So that's pretty much about non-primitive data types. Let's talk about the size occupied by different primitive data types. So as you can see, the Boolean is just 1 bit, right? It's either a true or a false. So it occupies the default size of 1 bit, and its default value is false. In case of a character, it's a 16-bit, so it's occupying 2 byte, and default value is U000. This is a Unicode character. Okay. In case of a byte, short, integer, long, float, and double, all the default values are 0. In case of a long, we have a suffix L. In case of a float, we have a suffix F. In case of a double, we have a suffix T. The size occupied by byte is 1 byte, short is 2 byte, integer is 4 byte, long 8 byte, float 4 byte, and double 8 byte. Okay. Now here's a very interesting question. In case of a C and C++, you will see that character occupies 1 byte of memory. But in case of a Java, a character occupies 2 bytes in memory. Why is that? It's a very common question. It's a very tricky question actually. So you see, in case of the answer is, in case of a C++, the code that is used is ASCII code system. But in Java, we use Unicode system, not the ASCII code system. That is why the character in Java is UTF-16 encoded. What does UTF means? It's a Unicode system, right? And you can see the number, it requires a minimum of 16 bits of storage. 16 bits of storage for each character. Now, you will know that 8 bits equal to 1 byte. And that's why 16 bits equal to 2 byte. And that is the reason that Java character stores actually 2 bytes in memory. Okay, let's hope you have understood the theory. I believe that you would have understood the theory. Let's move to the coding part and see their various syntaxes, how the input and how the output goes. Okay guys, let's see the IDE. It's a wonderful IDE provided by Newton School. It has multiple languages, as you can see. You can choose any of the languages with various good features like custom input, custom output, compiler output and messages, as well as the error messages. It's really good. You have to try it out. Okay, let's start with this. So I defined few types here. You can see the integer I define here as my num, and I give the value as 5. So what is this integer? This integer will contain a whole number, right? Then I defined a float value and give it value as 5.99. Again, observe here that I have used the value f here. What does that f denotes? That f is supposed to know that this is a float value. Then I have defined a character. Character occupies only 2 bytes here, so it's only one single character, right? Then I defined Boolean here and I initialized value at true. And observe that I have defined a long here. So the value that I have used is capital L. What does that capital L denotes? This capital L denotes that it is a long type. The suffix denotes the long type. Now here observe one thing. All of these integer, float, character, Boolean, long, all of these primitive data types, they start with a small character, right? They start with a small character. I small, F is small, C small, B small, L is small, right? And they all are in blue. But when I define string, string is not in blue. It means it is not a primitive data type. And it starts with a capital character S, right? So it's not primitive data type. So I define a non-string my text equal to welcome to Launchpad by Newton School. Now what I do is system.out.println. It will print output to my system, right? And so I'm printing text, number, long, float number, Boolean, and let. Let's see the output, guys. I run the code. It will be compiled. Let's see the output. So you can see the output, right? First, it prints the text, which is welcome to Launchpad by Newton School. Then it prints my number, which is the value 5. Then it prints my long, which is 1000. Float value, which is 5.99. And my bool, which is true. And my letter equal to true. Right? Now let's try changing some things. So what I do is, instead of creating a single character, I change it to 2 double characters. Let's see what will be the output. Now it's not a character anymore, right? So compiler should actually throw me an error. Let's try to run it. So you got some error message. What is the error message? Unclosed character letter. Correct? Unclosed character letter. It's not a statement. So if I change it back to only one character, this will compile successfully. See, let's make one more changes. So instead of defining it, I leave it uninitialized. Let's see what's the error the compiler will give me, or it should not give me an error because I'm not initializing any variable. The compiler gave me an error. And what's the error? Variable is not been initialized, right? So it's always good to initialize the variable before compiling and running your code. Right, initialize it, and now let's see the output. Yes, it goes through. One more thing, guys, whenever you define any data types and variables, so in the case of variables, you have to make sure that there's some naming convention that you use. For example, the name of variable always starts with a lowercase character, right? Although it's not mandatory, you can use underscore as well in the case of that. But you cannot use the first character as a num value. So you cannot use to my num. This will give you an error. Okay. Apart from that, you can start with any underscore character or special characters, right? But in the case of the first variable, it cannot be a number. Got it? So हम variables के बारे में next video में नहीं पढ़ेंगे, but type of variables like local, static, and instance, we'll cover all type of variables in the next class. So आज की क्लास एक बार रिवाइज करते हैं. हमने स्टार्ट किया था डेटा टाइप से. We covered through the primitive, non-primitive data types. In case of non-primitive types, examples are string, array, classes, interface. इसके बारे में हम आने वाली वीडियोस में पढ़ेंगे. In context of primitive data types, we have covered all 8 primitive types: Boolean, character, byte, short, integer, long, float, and double. हमने जाना इनकी रेंजेस क्या होते हैं, यूज कैसे होते हैं, इनका सिंटैक्स क्या होता है, if there are any suffix used, what is the suffix used, and how are their ranges and defined. In addition to that, हमने एक टेबल भी देखी थी जहाँ पे हमने सबका साइज देखा था, like how many bits or bytes in the memory they actually occupy, right? In addition to that, we know the default value that they contain. So I do believe that you understand the data types in Java, primitive and non-primitive both. And if you like the video, make sure that you like it and do subscribe to the channel because some awesome new videos are coming up. Till then, see you.